Ladies and gentlemen, big Herald news.
Hey, kia ora koutou e te whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy Apple Eaters. I'm just looking up right now, and what the hell has Bomber still got a show going on for? I mean, we love
It's
Simon
rude.
Wilson.
It's
We
rude.
love Simon Wilson.
That is powerful enough.
It's time to
make
get
people
off the
think
microphone,
twice
boys.
And to invest
Come
in
on,
the
get off that bloody microphone.
I told them all. They're all late. They all owe us fees now.
What are they, like a licensing fee for us?
Yeah.
There is something about smitten apples, S-M-I-T-T-E-N. They are the best apples. They're the only apples I ever buy. And you know what? When I go to Auckland and visit whānau and that kind of stuff, I always go to the supermarket and look for smitten, and they don't have them. There is something about smitten apples. I don't know if they're only a South Island thing, but they are the shit. And if you try and say anything else is better than, we're going to end the live stream, and that's it for us.
No. Just clear everything else. This is now a podcast about apples, and by that I mean it's just me and Pat arguing about two different types of apples. The
That's the best one,
superior apple.
Yep.
The superior apple is the whimsically named Sweetango.
They're okay. They're a B. They're a B plus.
They are okay. This is what gets you put on a list. It's a list that I keep in here and in here of people that have betrayed me. The Sweetango is the best apple.
I haven't worn a Nicky No Boats for a while. Rocking the Nicky No Boats tonight. Hey team,
Is there a
how are
reason
you?
for that?
No, not really. I mean, we are talking a little bit about the ferry time. Do you know what the reason is? Shall I give you the really honest answer? If you look back over the past 3 or 4 shows, I've been pretty much wearing exactly the same thing. I don't really get sweaty and smelly. And I have that grey hoodie that I wear, which is one from a snowboard shop up in Queenstown. I really love. And I'll get to the end of a show and I go, oh shit, I wore it again. So the reason I'm wearing this is I had to make sure I was wearing something different. So here it is. Peter wants to get on your list as well because he thinks that it's jazz apples that are top tier. Looks like we've got
someone. I see a Royal Gala stand in the chat. You've wandered
get away,
into the wrong
loser.
room. You have no friends here.
It looks like the names have gone back in our chats as well.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah. So like
Look, I'm pretty sure the listener base of the platform really like Royal Galas. That's how strongly I feel about that apple.
I used to, when I was growing up in Auckland, we had a Granny Smith tree, and it was we used to get straight off the tree Granny Smith, which was kind of nice. But yeah, that's because I was born in 1924 when people had Granny Smith trees in their backyard. Okay.
Other apple related topic I want to bring up here.
Yes.
I read an excellent book once called Apples Are from Kazakhstan.
Oh, okay.
It's an excellent book. It's all about the history of Kazakhstan. But look, this might surprise you considering that that topic, that title. But apples actually did come from Kazakhstan.
So it's not just a clever title.
No, it's not just a clever title. So it was posited in this book that if apples came from Kazakhstan, and apples are what led to Adam and Eve being thrown out of paradise, therefore Kazakhstan is Eden.
And nice. I was telling my kids the other day, I'm just ignoring what you said, I'm moving on, about going to a big day out concert. I was talking to my eldest about, the danger in big crowds. And I went there the year that Limp Bizkit was on. And on one of the stages was Limp Bizkit. And on the other stage was Rammstein. And
it's a good combo.
yeah. And when Rammstein had finished on one of the stages, everyone that was watching Rammstein all started to push over towards the stage with Limp Bizkit on. And as a probably then 120 kilo, 6'4" guy who had never been worried for my safety, I got lifted off my feet. I got carried back on a 45-degree angle about 30 meters, and I ended up facing away from the stage. And there was not a damn thing I could do about it. That's when I finally realized for the first time, like if one person had gone down, they all would have gone down. The reason I'm saying that, Chewy, is I feel this crush coming from the Bradbury group right now as we speak. I feel them pushing their way into...
I've seen the watch count go, ooh. So remember,
hey, look,
the rules of the mosh pit apply, people. If someone
Yep.
falls down, what do? We pick
stomp
them
on
up.
them. Oh, sorry.
No, we
Sorry.
pick them up.
Sorry, pick them up. Hey, there's a lot going on tonight, guys. We are going to talk about Bob Vylan. We talked a little bit about him last night, but there's been more news about him today and what happened at Glastonbury.
What a bunch of bullshit.
Dave Smith, who many are seeing as kind of one of the most outspoken people about Gaza and at the moment. I always go with Dave. He is on point when it comes to Gaza, but he is still a conservative libertarian. It's a bit like you don't necessarily want to put what's her name, Cheney, the daughter, up in front of your crowd because she may agree with you on one thing pretty strongly, but just be aware of all the other things that'll come along in the background. But you can't argue that at the moment Dave Smith is on point when it comes. I mean, when he takes Douglas Murray apart, he makes Douglas Murray look like an absolute clown that he is. You know he's doing something right. He was on Breaking Points, I think, today, and shared a couple of things, and he shares a piece of gold that normally I'd spoil it and try and steal it for my own, but he shares a piece of gold about why he is such a good debater. You have to watch it. And I just thought this is the same for any of these arguments, whether it's the anti-vax argument, whether it's the boot camp argument, any of these arguments, the piece of gold he gives about why he's such a good debater on Gaza, you'll see very clearly how it relates to a lot of stuff we talk about. It's very, very, very good. Also, some more ferry announcements coming up. Once again, we don't know what's going to cost, but we're going to do this. Also, the coward punch laws are out today, and Goldsmith was on New Zealand Herald's version of BHN. It's actually Big Hairy New Zealand Herald that was on that this morning. And some other bits and bobs along the way as well. There's also another pretty horrific attack on Gaza today by the IDF at a cafe where journalists and activists meet up. Not Hamas. No one has yet claimed it was a source of Hamas, but journalists meet there and activists meet there, and that was bombed today. So, coming out from yesterday, what we talked about in the Haaretz newspaper, how it's now been confirmed by IDF soldiers that they're told to shoot at Gazans who are... do you ever wonder why we slip down the wrong algorithms? Well, not the wrong algorithms, but the algorithms that go, nobody wants to see this. When we talk about this kind of stuff. No, anyway. Who says that the soldiers themselves have confirmed they shoot at starving Gazans as a way to communicate Israel's message. Lots of stuff today. Is there anything you want to mention or get into?
Yeah, I just want to springboard off that point of right-wing people slowly starting to wake up that murdering kids probably isn't good. I have this from American right-wing commentator Milo. I'm not even going to attempt his name.
Yiannopoulos.
But he's managed to hammer out this thought piece. If you just murdered 20,000 innocent children and all that happened was 17 seconds of protest chants and a music festival, can I gently suggest that you keep your mouth utterly shut and return to discreetly celebrating amongst yourself your latest consequence-free ethnic cleansing? Now, man said a lot of wrong things. Well, this ain't one of them.
So the problem with Milo is he went from being a right-wing authoritarian spokesperson to a Christian Zionist spokesperson to now this. So this is one I have been thinking about this in the last couple of days, actually, Chewy. And this is what's prompted me to say the thing about Dave Smith. I like Dave Smith, right? I like what he's doing. I like what he's saying in general. But it has prompted me to think and also prompted me to think people have been talking about Elon Musk. Oh, you watch the left grab Elon back. And we're like, no, thanks.
No,
but
no,
some
not on my watch.
but some people do. And I do think that we, and I'll say we as in you and me, Chewy, in the show, but we as in the left, need to be careful who we say, hey, this person's got it right. It's like we say about, the Posey Parker situation. She gets Nazis to come to her rallies. There's something wrong with the messaging if it attracts Nazis. I want to be careful that we don't get the enemy of my enemy as my friend. And then when we find the enemy of my enemy, they're also a white supremacist, or they are, whatever other terrible thing. So I do think about that thing when we talk about how we're enjoying this position from this person. And we do say often of our own politicians in isolation in this moment, but our politicians aren't quite at the stage of we have to worry with if they're genocidal or not. We more have to worry if they've got a bad policy around boot camps. It's a slightly different kind of levels of seriousness when it comes to the world.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at it just as like, not that fucking Milo's suddenly seen the light and is welcomed into the loving arms of the left.
I have seen the light.
I think I see 2 points there, and this is probably more to the point with Piers Morgan, right? This is someone with a massive reach into a certain demographic, is that him changing his position there may have an effect on that demographic.
Yeah, I don't think anyone takes Milo Yiannopoulos seriously anymore.
No,
I think that,
I wouldn't put.
I don't think anyone. I don't think the right or the left. Anyone. I mean, when he went on Tim Pool's show of recent years, and he started talking about people being bought off by Russians, not really realizing Tim Pool was one of the people bought off by Russians, and he had to backtrack immediately. Like I genuinely don't think. But anyway, the point being, who we put in front of people to say, listen to these words. I think we need to be mindful of other words. Now, that doesn't mean we have to agree with everything, and we might put someone like Dave Smith on, but like we wouldn't put Nick Fuentes on because he's saying some things about Israel at the moment, because he's got some different reasons for his versions of what he thinks about Israel compared to most normal people. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, I don't even know how to start this night's show, Chewy. There's so much going on. Maybe we should maybe we'll just get into the Dave Smith stuff, actually, because it is actually quite interesting. Now I've got so many tabs open, I don't even know which one it is. Which one is it, Chewy? Help me with the number.
Welcome to BHN's Lucky Dip News Commentary Show.
Okay.
Where Pat picks a tab and we see what happens.
Let's have a look at this. Now, this is from Breaking Points, and you can see I've actually taken this grab off Breaking Points as well. But
to make the sacrifice.
Oh, what's going on? Oh, okay. I've got things everywhere. Bob Vylan, to actually find a good audio quality of what he said at Glastonbury is becoming difficult because things have been taken down from all over the place. Well, this is actually the BBC version. So what happened with the BBC is obviously erased this, and apparently the BBC wouldn't show these guys live, that's Kneecap live or Bob Vylan live, because they were worried about them saying we should be nice to Palestinians. But this somehow got through. So this is the chant that everyone's talking about. Let's hear it from the man himself.
Free, 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 free. Alright, but have you heard this one though? Death, death to the IDF, death, death to the IDF, death, death to the IDF. Death, death to the IDF.
That's the banger of the summer, people.
Death, death to the IDF.
You're probably pretty clear on where he stands on that. Now, the one thing before we get into the Dave Smith commentary from Breaking Points on that, here's the one thing that I'm finding particularly interesting. If we believe that this is a war, and we have trouble with that phrase because war normally involves two people of somewhat equal standings going at each other with somewhat equal weapons. So this doesn't feel like a war. But if we go with the premise that this is the war, that would mean the two combatants are the IDF and Hamas, right? Now, nobody has a problem with talking about eliminating and taking off the face of the planet so they no longer exist, Hamas. So nobody has any problems with talking about the elimination of Hamas, killing everyone in Hamas. That doesn't raise an ire. But as soon as someone says killing the other combatant, it's everywhere. So Bob Vylan today lost his management. He's no longer represented by one of the big labels.
He's
and there
also
are
had a visa cancelled.
Yep. And charges could be on the way. So let's have a listen to Dave Smith. This is Dave Smith on Breaking Points today. A couple of minutes here, and then I'll get to that piece of gold when it comes to why he is a good... He actually says he's not a good debater, but the reason he wins debate is the gold. We'll get to that shortly.
No, so nobody, I think, essentially of the people who are outraged about this actually cared about it or knew about it. But again, it's, you know, I've done so many of these debates on Israel Palestine over the last couple years, and so many like shows about it, and it's like we were saying earlier, it's the double standards and the hypocrisy are just like what's so overwhelming. You know, it's the idea that after all of these months of just women and children being massacred in the most ruthless ways, that we're supposed to be outraged about like a chant at a concert, and that this is, you know, this is really the threat of our time, not what the IDF is doing to Gaza. It's just, it's very bizarre. And so, yeah, look, it's fairly predictable that this was a provocative thing to do. And I think the thing that should be a wake-up call is just, as you pointed out, it's such a huge crowd and they're all in agreement. And I think that's the thing that is threatening to people who are supporters of Israel, but should be something that everybody should take a look at. Like, hey, look, what's going on here? And this is, however you feel about it, this is going to be one of the costs that comes with the policy of destroying Gaza. And I still just cannot believe 22 months later, whatever we are since October 7th, that the pro-Israel crowd doesn't wake up to this. That it's like,
and that they're still saying Israel has the right to defend itself. That's the other thing. It's unbelievable 22 months into it.
like, hey, look, yes, the poor Palestinians cannot stop you. And as we were just discussing, it seems like for whatever reason, the Americans, including the Trump administration, are unable or unwilling to put pressure on Israel to stop them. America really is the Americans are the only ones who could stop the Israelis, and we're not. We're facilitating it.
Well, I don't even know if that's true. Like, you know, you heard Trump the other day, oh, I'm pretty angry with Netanyahu as well for dropping bombs immediately. It's like, I don't know if I agree with Dave Smith on that. I mean, there are a lot of people in the chat saying he speaks the truth, but I don't know if America could cut them off, but I don't know if America could stop them, because if America cut them off, Chewy, I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Russia or someone else then just continue to supply them. So I think perhaps the truth might be America could make life more difficult for Israel to bomb Gaza, but I don't know if they could cut them off. I don't know if they could stop it.
I would disagree with that. I don't think Russia has the capability to step in there. And I think if they did that, they would piss off all of their traditional Arab allies in the area.
Okay.
I don't think China is able to step in there because they are the ones that are helping out Iran and supplying Iran with anti-aircraft equipment and that sort of thing. America is their one shot.
But we'll put it this way. Let me take a half step back and let's say you're right. It's probably an easy 12 months before they'd have to stop. It's not like America is supplying them weapons that they're using the next day. They would have a big stock of them. And if they also, I would think, if they all of a sudden realized America is not going to be, you know, daddy, or more likely if we're not going to be daddy anymore to America, that means in 6 months our bombs are going to run out. We're going to finish it now. So I don't know if it's as simple as America could stop
I
this.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Israel has its own quite effective military industrial complex, huge manufacturers and that sort of thing, and they will constantly have a stockpile to wage war for months, expecting maybe to have the carpet yanked out from under them.
And also think about them. If we're talking about the military industrial complex, I mean, does the American government have to be involved? Could that get around the American government as a supplier?
Yeah, the American government can really crack the whip there. Like, so as an example, in the 60s and 70s, we bought fighter Skyhawks off the Americans. We used them for 40, 50 years, and then we wanted to sell them, and the American government had the say on who we could sell them to.
Right. Okay. So they're intertwined.
So they are very much intertwined.
All right, but that doesn't beat the fact you use the word stockpile. There's going to be a stockpile of weapons in Israel that's going to last them for months, if not longer. And if they got towards the end of it, they would use an ultimate final off the top rope, so to speak, if they needed to. This has got 60 seconds.
And the poor Palestinians are helpless. However, you are turning the entire world against you. And for a group of people, I say this as a Jewish, person myself, I'm well aware of the culture of kind of paranoia within Jewish Americans, at least. And I think maybe that's understandable given the history of how Jews have been treated in the world. But if you have this concern that there's this rise in anti-Semitism, there's this rise in Jew hatred, and oh my God, a next authoritarian Hitler-esque figure could be right around the corner, then my God, read the room. I mean, then advocate to end this policy, because it is coming with this. Listen, turns out you can only slaughter so many women and children before you make a lot of people hate you. And the way that manifests itself is not always going to be, a man in a suit and tie saying, "Excuse me, good sir, I disagree with this policy decision of slaughtering women and children." It's going to look like this quite often. And if you don't want to see more of it, stop slaughtering women and children.
Yeah, like I said, on point. You can't really argue the points he's making. And look, to be fair, I don't want to throw too much shade at Dave Smith. He's probably a more classic libertarian. He's probably not one of the people who you'd go, well, we've got to be careful because his other views, he's going to be pretty much standard American, more conservative right, but with libertarian values, not a terrifying lunatic. So he's fine. He's fine. I want to share that one other thing shortly, Chewy, but before I do that, your thoughts?
I think just what you've said there, I think that has got to be a worrying sign for the Israeli lobby, is that it's not just the rabid lefties that are sort of going, well, we don't think that killing kids is a good idea.
It's the libertarians. In America, you're seeing the libertarians.
And the conservative wing of America that are just looking at like, hey, just a quick question. Why are we giving so much money to Israel?
I don't think
Why are they dragging us into this?
Do you know what's happened? I don't think that's true, Chewy, not because it didn't seem to be happening, but what happened, like, for example, with the bombing of Iran and stuff, a lot of those people you were suggesting went, and you know what? Since that, they've all got back in line. Who hasn't got back in line is the libertarians. So the libertarians have moved out of that camp, but they may still well vote for a Trump-type figure. But all the conservative Americans and all those on the conservative time that started to look like there was a split in MAGA, as we heard so many on the left saying, they've all got back into line. Tucker Carlson made a phone call to Donald Trump to apologize for what he said. They got back into line. Yeah. So I think though, getting the so far it's kind of shaved off some of the more moral, shall we say, libertarians, but there's still a lot of work to do. So, okay. So here's this thing, and I love this. I love this so much. Not too long ago, we had a bit of maybe I had a bit of a change in philosophy. When we kind of go, well, we got to be fair. We kind of criticize this side of that, so we got to criticize that side of that as well. And I had a little moment where I went, you know what? Sometimes it's different. Sometimes you can criticize this side of that, but this side's allowed to do it for whatever reason. It doesn't always have to be 50-50. And the reason is, Chewy, if you are speaking the truth and if you are true to yourself and true to the facts and figures. So here's a little 60 seconds as to why Dave says he's not a good debater, but explains why he wins so many debates.
The secret, Ryan, that I'll share with you here is that I'm actually not that good of a debater. I'm not the most brilliant guy in the world.
I won't tell
I'm not
anybody.
reinventing the world. Well, I'm not as Douglas Murray thought this was a real gotcha. I'm not the expert. There are people who know this conflict and the history way better than I do. Norman Finkelstein can recite every UN resolution in his sleep. I can't do that. You know what I mean? But I know enough, and I just take the side that is the obvious correct side. Yes, and then that makes it very difficult to debate against, because the truth has this ring to it. When people say something rings true, the truth just has like a power that when you're in an argument, it's very easy to win it when you have the truth on your side. And so my experience has been that this has been, with the overwhelming majority of people, just calling out the insanity of this policy has been resonating.
And it's as simple as that, Fano. If you're coming from the correct side, if you're speaking the truth, it's very hard to lose the debate. It's very hard. When he said that this afternoon, I realised my wife has some conservative friends and stuff, and they're cool. I like them a lot. But I'm not a very good person to argue with because I'm quite reasonable and I speak the truth. And I know there's going to be, if there's any crunchies out there right now, they're going to be, oh, the truth. It's like, well, actually, anything we do on this show, we do our best to check the facts, to look behind what they mean, to see where they've come from, and we speak the truth. And I think this is a lesson for everyone, Chewy. If you're being honest and you're speaking the truth, you will win the debate. Maybe not even in the moment where someone can bring out something that fools people, but if we speak the truth, we win. And I think that's what's happening in Gaza. I mean, that's what Dave's saying. What's happening in Gaza? It's like 50. How much is enough? Hamas, they committed an act of terror, a war crime, killing the 1,200 people ish. I know there's even some debate about that, but that's fine for today's. You're at between 50 and 100,000. When is enough enough? Yeah, just when is enough? What do you mean? My Twitter feed today, man. I don't know why. I didn't even look at it. I just went through my feed. It's like people in pieces in Gaza. Maybe it was actually that cafe we're going to talk about. It's like, let's look at this, shall we? And let's look at your average cafe in Israel right now. When is enough enough? When food, people being shot at whilst begging for food. No, they don't do that. Well, actually, the IDF soldiers are now saying they are doing that, and they've been commanded to do it. Truth. Debate the truth. And the only way they can get around it, or think they can get around it, is to deny the truth. It's Hamas firing at those people waiting for the thing. And so they can choose to refuse to believe. I don't believe they actually don't believe. I think it's a tactic. But if you speak the truth, ultimately you're going to win the debate. And I just think it's great.
Yeah. I think, like, if you are having these discussions with people, this is a really key point. Like, it's always very attractive to try and come up with a clever, convoluted argument and that sort of thing. But if you distill down your objection to its most pure point, you are rock solid. You've got no ground to give. Yep. Like, if your argument is, I think that Israel should fucking stop, and your reasoning is, I think killing kids is bad, or my position is that war crimes are bad, that's you can't debate that, because your argument is, actually, I'm okay with a certain level of children being killed, or some war crimes are justifiable. Like, that's you're on a hiding there straight out the gates.
And I'll tell you something. If I wasn't on this show, if this wasn't our show, I'd be more arrogant. I'd say something like, why you guys are lucky to have us is that when we need to be truthful about our own side, we are. What happens with the other side is when they need to be truthful about their own side, they're not. And that doesn't happen much in media today. Last week, we said yay to members of the government twice, and we said boo to the left one time because it was warranting of being critical. If you tell the truth, you're ultimately going to win. Even if the truth you have to tell is slightly uncomfortable and then it's about your side. If you tell the truth, eventually you're going to win the debate. Now, let's not be all Pollyanna about this and say win government or win the seat or win the house or whatever it is. But it means that you have just got a foundation to springboard off, which you never have. We never have to defend our position on Hamas and Israel, because from day one we went Hamas, act of terror, war crime, and that's the only debate they've got. So will you denounce October 7th? Yeah. Hamas committed war crimes. It was an act of terror. It was repugnant. They need to pay the high price for it. Will you denounce bombing civilians in buildings? Well, they gave warnings. It's like, no. You don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. So I don't think, and it sounds really arrogant, I know, and I don't mean to be, because always when you say this kind of thing, someone will trip you up with one little point. But I don't think we've got anything that at any stage we will ever have to walk back about Israel and Gaza. Because we've been honest and truthful the whole time. Do you feel that way, Chewy?
Yes. Yeah. Look, I have no problem discussing my point of view with anybody about a variety of different topics. You know, some people tie themselves up in knots because they're pro-Ukraine, but Ukraine has supported Israel, and so therefore I must be pro-Israel. Or you know, I support Palestine, so I must support Russia. No, like those, you can have your own train of thought. I don't care who's allied with who. I think that Ukraine is 100% in the right because they're the ones that got invaded. And guess what? That transfers over to the Palestinians quite easily as well. Hamas is a terror organization, and I personally believe that the Russians nudged them into this because they knew it would draw global focus into the absolute bloodbath. The gates of hell were going to open up in Gaza. They knew it was primed for that, and that it would really affect one of Ukraine's major supporters at that point, the US. And guess what? It fucking worked. Russia might not be winning, they're unfortunately not losing the fight in Ukraine either, but they have certainly won that battle of intelligence, that battle of like, maybe we can get our spies to do something super sneaky and just get America to fucking sprint head first into the brick wall that we've built for them. And it worked. It 100% worked.
And just to wrap this part up, and I'm trying to find it, but I can't find it. The evidence we've had in the last few weeks of speaking the truth is we were watching a commentator, it might have been on Piers Morgan, Chewy, and the commentator was saying, like, with Russia and Ukraine, the countries bordering Ukraine opened their borders and they let Ukrainians get out. Why won't Egypt open their border? And what that person didn't realize is they were painting Israel as the Russia in their example, and they were trying to do it as a way to talk down Gaza. But in the example they gave, they said Israel is Russia, the ones who are invading, because they've played so many mind gyms to get to, done so many backflips and somersaults to get to their position, they can't stay consistent. And that's why it's always good to, at the very least, attempt as much as you can to come from a place of truth. At the very best, come from a place of truth. And if you're not 100% sure, then to make sure people know you are offering opinion, which is valid as well. Anyhow.
One of the things the people that follow me on Blue Sky would have seen this, but I was talking to Pat about just before the show. We spoke a little bit about what's going on in Gaza at the moment and the reports of the IDF opening fire on starving people lining up at an organised relief centre. Because
of course you would. Why not?
It just makes sense. They're all there. You don't have to go looking for them. They're all there. So you can use sniper fire, drone shots, heavy machine guns from the back of tanks.
Sorry to interrupt you. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it just, I mean, this is awful what I'm about to say. It reminds me of in America when they're trying to get rid of deer off a farm, they put out feeders, and at night time they drop feed on the ground, and the deer come in, and then the guys wipe them out. Sorry.
Yep.
But
yeah, absolutely. It's just more efficient. And you know who else was really keen on efficiency when it came out to wiping out the entire people? I won't say the rest. But what I was talking about with Pat and on Blue Sky is, like, as someone that has watched a lot of footage on Ukraine and has devoured that subject as a keen follower of history and of military history, basically I follow Ukraine like a history book playing out live in front of me, right? And that doesn't affect me in the same way that looking at these stories coming out of Gaza do. And I think that is because it is, however unfair the matchup and how illegal that invasion is, it is still a country that is capable of defending itself, fighting off a clear aggressor. Like it's like Ukraine.
Ukraine's the one that's capable. I mean, we saw the drone strikes on their planes just 2 weeks ago. So they've got the skills. They're capable. Yeah,
they're capable of hitting back, and it is more of a traditional struggle, I guess. When we look at this footage coming out of Gaza, literally every photo out of Gaza, every story out of Gaza.
Yeah,
I finished a show last night and went to go to bed and just could not get this out of my fucking head. And maybe I've seen it often described, a trait of people with ADD is an absolutely turbocharged sense of right and wrong, of what's fair and what's not, and what is just and what is unjust, and it just sticks with me. And my whole brain was screaming as I was trying to go off to sleep, of like, I can see this so clearly, that is so expanded out past what would reasonably be considered a just reaction to a terrorist attack. It has gone on and on and on, and people are just sitting on the side and they're debating, you know, well, and it's just people going, well, are you against all Jews? No. And no one, not a single person, not a single world leader with any pull, nobody has taken action. Nobody has yanked Israel's chain. Like, we're all debating about, well, we can't tell them not to. UN can't do anything. The international rules-based order means fucking nothing in the face of this, because there is no consensus. There is nobody moving together. Everything is moving so slowly. There's no unilateral action. Nothing. And while we're all fumbling around the edges of it, like here in New Zealand, what I have this. I can get my feelings out on this. I can donate money to causes where I can. I can write emails to our government and go, why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we granting more emergency visas? Why aren't we saying something in the UN? Why aren't we donating more aid? Why aren't we kicking the Israeli ambassador out and shuttering their embassy for fucking ever, as far as I'm concerned? Why is there not somebody going, you know what, I'm going to form an aid convoy of more than one civilian ship, and I'm going to sail it over there, and if the Israelis can take a crack at us, then the world will see them for what they are. And that's how my brain spun until about 4 a.m. And that's little old me on this side of the planet. What's it like to be closer? What's it like to be a Palestinian in somewhere else in the world that has to watch this? I keep coming back to seeing, to remembering what a Palestinian said at a protest here in New Zealand, that they had generations of their family killed. Generations. I think it was something 32 members of their family had been killed in this. And that was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And we're still going, well, a guy at Glastonbury said bad things about the military force that is doing this. And you've got the New York Post. This was the video that I was going to put up. Their headline on this, because they've got that similar footage to what you have. Full anti-Semitic Bob Vylan rant the BBC now admits it should have cut off. And all the comments underneath it are saying, where's the anti-Semitism? Point out where he said anything against all Jews everywhere. It was pointed at the military force of a country doing a genocide, and we can't say bad things about them. Death to the IDF. Because that's what they're doing. They're bringing death there.
Yeah, it's again, Chewy, and I'm sorry for what you're going through at the moment. I mean, we all go through it on some level, but you're obviously really feeling it. And we have got one other thing to show tonight, and maybe I do it at the end if you don't want to be around for it. That's up to you. We can do that. I get it. We just talked about the thing about being honest, starting from a point of truth. If the point of truth we're starting from, which is not our position, it's their position, that this is a just war, then enemy combatants kill one another. If it's okay to say death to Hamas and let's eliminate them off the face of the planet, surely for the people who are supporting Gaza, it's okay to say death to ID. Doesn't that make logical sense? That might sound uncomfortable, and we might get some complaints ourselves about asking the question, but if the people of Israel can say death to Hamas, why can the people of Palestinian and their supporters say death to the IDF? What's the difference? And we know the difference. The difference is back to the original conversation about Dave Smith, the difference, Chewy, is inconsistency. People grade it on a curve.
Would death to the Waffen SS mean, would that be an attack against all German people? No. And this is exactly the same. Like, it's not even an attack on all Israelis.
No,
it's certainly not an attack on all Jewish people, like the New York Post wants people to believe. Like, it's just foolish. It's treating everyone like children.
We're going to move on, but before we do, I think we just do this one more time.
Free, free! Free, free! Free, free! Alright, but have you heard this one, though? Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF!
Just noticed as well amongst that crowd, didn't see any Jewish flags. I mean, I wonder how that would have been taken by the people at Glastonbury. Now, look,
this is your PSA to go and listen to Bob Vylan, by the way. They're amazing.
This might get us this episode taken down or complained against or demonetized or whatever, but that's cool. Me and Chewy just spoke about this before the show, and we've told you guys all this before. When we go down the path of saying what I think we need to be saying about Palestinian, we hit the dark interwebs algorithm. In other words, everything drops down and drops off. But we're gonna, one of the things that's so fantastic about having patrons, you know, it's not, our driving force is not to get clicks, it's to speak the truth and to talk about things that matter. And that's sort of what we're about. Now, Chewy, I would like to ask you, because you are a part of this, it would feel natural to go into this Middle East story now. Do you need a break? And like, honestly, I'm being serious. I wouldn't take a break.
No.
You're all right? All right. Because I cares about you, brother.
I'm fueled by anger.
Yeah. And I know when we say that out loud, some people will be like, oh, soy boy. But it's just, think about this right now. I'm speaking on Chewy's behalf here. Chewy kind of knows people who knows people who knows people who are connected to Gaza. And then you get people who are from the region, who know people who are connected to Gaza. And then you get people who are connected to Gaza. And I was thinking, as you were talking about people like Marilyn Garson, who has lived in Gaza and has friends still in Gaza. If it's impacting people like Chewy like this, imagine Marilyn. Imagine the Gazan who's out of Gaza. Imagine the Gazan who's in Gaza. Yeah. You know, it's like, it's just as fucked. And if we're gonna hit that algorithm to hide us, we'll just use every bit of language we want. This is utterly fucked. This is utterly fucked. And Chewy, I think one of the things you said. Yeah, we'll take the language filter off. I think one of the things you've said, which I think is so important, is fucking where are the government pushbacks? You know, where are the government pushbacks? Because you know what, you can be pro-Israel, or you can be pro-Palestinian, or you can be pro-innocent people, or you can be, even there, somewhere in the middle, war crimes shouldn't be happening, innocent people shouldn't be getting targeted, and still not be fully fledged pro-Palestinian. But then no one's doing anything. No one's standing up and going, this is wrong. I haven't heard any politician stand up about that report in the Israeli paper about war crimes. You know, soldiers shooting at and shooting starving people looking for food. Haven't heard that anywhere. So if they're not even prepared to make a neutral statement, we're so far on different planets, I just don't know how to move forward with politicians. That's why we look to people like the Greens. That's why we look to people like some in Labour. That's why we look to Te Pāti Māori. I think that's where we're looking. We you know, like me and Chewy and the show, I think that's where we're looking. It's like Labour's there. They're a part of us. They're a part of our team. And there are people within Labour that we will fill their sails every single day. Think about Kieran, right? Think about Barbie Edmonds every single day. Not saying anything bad about them. I'm just saying there's some in Labour that we would gravitate towards more. Point us towards Te Pāti Māori and point us towards Greens, and we'll fill all their sails all the time for any reason whatsoever. And that's, I think, fairly where we sit. True, Chewy?
Yeah, 100%.
Because they are the ones who will speak the truth. That's what we're talking about. So let's have a look at this. It's a fucking horrific story. I'm sorry to have to play it for you. But it's important because there are some imagery in here, and there is some video and some reaction from family members, seeing family members, that is incredibly hard to see. I don't have any problems, obviously, if anyone needs to not watch this. There's no judgment if you're up to if your water level is overflowing for today and you need to take 5 minutes out and come back. 100%, and you should. You need to look after yourself as well, right? But we're going to play this now. It's this attack that's happened in Gaza. On the Gaza seaside, a cafe was bombed. That just by chance and coincidentally was where all the journalists met. Funny that. Israel would bomb the cafe where all the journalists met and activists. At no point, and I'll say it again, at no point has anyone made the claim that this was a Hamas site or Hamas were using it. That has not been made by anybody.
Just a warning, this next story includes footage some viewers may find distressing.
It is somewhat graphic. Honestly,
Israel
if you need to take a break, take a break.
In the occupied Gaza Strip. The Hamas-run health ministry saying at least 74 people have been killed, including 30 at a popular beachfront cafe. The BBC's Lucy Williamson reports.
A target at the edge of Gaza's coastline, a cafe at the centre of Gaza's wall.
Can I just, before we go on though, say this? Like, you can see the cafe's around the corner, it's been hit. Can we not take attention away from what they're running past? The buildings they're running past?
There's not a pane of glass left.
The buildings they're running past to see today's target. We just have to watch those as well. Because this is not a new location to be bombed. This is a continued location to be bombed.
Cafe Al Baka was a hub for journalists and activists sending news of airstrikes. Its beachside tables, a link to Gaza's past, one colleague told me. Its internet connection, a link to the outside world. Among the dead, a well-known photographer, Ismail Abu Khattab, and 26-year-old Hadi Abu Dan, one of the staff, identified by his mother.
Everyone was happy sitting in the cafe. They were escaping the sadness. Then the missile hit. It tore into the children, the women, the men, and the workers. No one was spared.
As Israel's attacks on Gaza intensify, its prime minister is trumpeting the end of his war in Iran, saying it offers new opportunities for the region. Donald Trump is pressuring him for a ceasefire in Gaza.
Just want to pause it again, just to have a look at the buildings. You know, we can't forget. I was almost going to say lest we forget, Chewy, throwing it back to a previous iteration of conflict. But we just can't. This missile hitting one cafe is not the total news today about conflict and about devastation. The rest of Gaza remains like this. We need to remember that.
But residents in Gaza City last night said it felt like the war was beginning all over again. Intense airstrikes, including on this shelter for displaced people, forcing hundreds of families to flee.
So do we get that? Cafe that had activists and journalists, and a refuge centre for displaced people. You know, all those really dangerous enemy combatants, those ones.
Look at us. We're not just numbers or pictures. We are human beings. Our Lord created us to live like anyone else. It is our right to live, and to live with dignity, not like this in humiliation.
Gaza's rubble is a graveyard and a playground. Hopes of a ceasefire barely visible. Strikes barely breaking the rhythms of daily life.
Sometimes when I set these up, obviously I watch them. And sometimes when I re-watch them live, I see different things. Like, so what I saw today was not, like in the second viewing, what I saw today was not the explosion or the missile into the cafe, which I saw the first time around. It was actually the square kilometre around it, which we were seeing cameras running down, and how that was all flattened as well. And when they say it was a missile into a cafe, I suspect it was probably, they were calling a cafe probably a previously bombed building. There wouldn't be any reason why one shop in amongst all that would be untouched. that they were using again to continue to use it as a cafe because, you know, try and live somewhat of a normal life in what is quite literally a hellscape, and then it gets missiled again, attacked again. Chewy, any thoughts, bro?
Yeah, look, there are so many images out there of Gaza at the moment, and all of them look like Berlin in 1945.
Yeah.
Absolutely bombed flat. Like it's more unusual to see an undamaged building. I've never seen an undamaged building in a year of watching this footage. And
I mean, just pause. Can you go back? Just pause for 1 sec. Just go back a bit. Just where we saw some taller buildings, that previous shot. Because here's what I want. Okay, stop there. So see the tallest building in the background there, Trey, kind of further away from the camera, sort of in the middle. That's probably that one. That's probably a 2 to 3 year build. When you think about an apartment building in your town, that's probably a 2 to 3 year build, that building right there. That's repeated, what are we going to say, 15 times in that framing? 10 times in that framing? So this screen that you're looking at, which is going to be 1/100th of 1% of the layout of Gaza, there might be 30 years of rebuilding there, cumulatively.
This is a big part of why when people are wringing their hands and going, oh, we don't want to use the genocide word. A big part of the technical term of genocide is not just the mass killing of a
Holy shit.
but it's the erasure of their culture.
Yeah.
Like these buildings are their universities, their municipal records, their libraries, their universities. There was a story I saw from one of the hospitals. Of course, the Israelis have been saying that Hamas is hiding under all the hospitals, and they may or they may not be. But one of the things that happened when the ground invasion happened was when the IDF went into hospitals, they deliberately destroyed every single piece of medical equipment. Why? No, there's no military value to a sonogram machine or a dialysis machine. There's not a single piece of military value in there. But they went through there and methodically broke every screen, every piece of equipment. All of it was for life-saving. They don't want the next generation to learn. If they survive, they don't want them to learn. If they get wounded, they don't want them to be healed. They don't want people to be able to prove that they own a piece of property. They don't want people's, the university work, the theses, the education is all gone. It is people and it is culture and it is everything about Gaza is being erased. Now, on Bomber's show earlier tonight, they had a Palestinian journalist on, and he made reference to the fact that New Zealand has connections to Palestine, that there are Anzac graves, and specifically Māori Anzac graves in Palestine. And I keep coming back to a stain on New Zealand military history, the massacre that Anzac troops participated in Palestine. We have an obligation to this part of the world because of that, in my opinion. And I want to know who is going to ask that question. We've had Christopher Luxon standing in a battleground in a war cemetery in Belgium full of New Zealand soldiers that crossed the world to do what they thought was right at that time for king and country against the Hun and all of that sort of thing. But we weren't too small then to stand up for something.
Yeah.
Why are we too small now? How can a man like Christopher Luxon stand in the same place that I've stood in? I've stood in the middle of that cemetery. I've walked those same Belgian battlefields and was overcome with the fact that these people travelled for months by boat far away from their families and died in a muddy Belgian field for reasons of scattered royal family throughout Europe, but they did it because they thought it was the right thing to do. And now, when the world is so much smaller, well, we can't possibly make any effect on anything, so we'll just stay out of it and let the big boys deal with it. But our leader is a jellyfish.
Yeah.
Who can't draw those moral equivalences, who can't wrap his head around that sort of history that we have. And he's fine to talk about the rugby and punching above our weight and all of this fucking pointless bullshit. But he can't use his moment in front of the media at a NATO summit to go, hey, here are some of the most wealthy, technologically advanced civilizations that have ever walked the earth. Why aren't we doing more to stop the world from spiraling out of control? That anybody that knows their history is looking at this and going, it's a little bit 1933 out there at the moment. Maybe we should stop it going on another 10 years.
And Chewy, just to maybe wrap up this part of the conversation, Paul makes a perfectly good point on the text where he says, that's almost as bad as a punk band using hyperbole. Point well made. Okay, I feel like we need something in between going in to talk about retail crime. So let's do some super chats, and then if you get anything else you want to throw in there, we'll do it, and then we'll move on. Jazz Apple's the top tier. We've done that. You've already been disowned. Kaimatara, so Pat's stance is a broken clock is mostly wrong. Yeah. Well, I guess the stance is a broken clock can be mostly wrong, or can be right twice a day. And I think we've got to be careful not to put up the one that's mostly broken, mostly wrong, to be the one to sell the 2 times it's right. That's the thing.
Oh, look at the time. Oh, I've never liked that clock.
Justin says, not chant. I put this up actually, because when we're talking about chanting, Justin makes the point, not chanting is not helpful either, which is a very good and very fair point. The name is Drucker. The merger of Ministry for the Environment, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development on the cards. No good will come from this. Yeah,
that makes no sense.
Well, but who are you talking about? Kerry Bird says, money for Chewy's aid convoy. Yep. Gosh, maybe we need to do another. I know we can't do much, but maybe we can do another Palestinian. Do the medical medical aid for Palestinians. Maybe we should do another fundraiser for that. It feels about right. Spot on, Chewy, says James. I feel the same about Gaza. Spot on about Gaza. I feel the same. And then One News always ends with a response from Israel. I noticed your message as we were watching that, and they didn't that time actually. They had a response, but they didn't end with a response. So that was, I don't know, is that a little tick for them? Maybe, maybe not. Kiwi Bird, Israel is doing this because they can. Who is going to stop them? America won't. They want the profits. Rajan blank to the IDF. Are people getting? I've been reading some things down there saying people have been getting what do you call it when you don't let the words come through on the text? Censored.
Oh, something like censored.
That. I wonder if
bring it on.
I wonder if YouTube's censoring it. All right, guys.
No plans to visit the US for a while or Israel.
Listen, it's a rough transition. There's not really much we can do about it. But we are going to transition now to other news stories of the day. There was news today about new punishments for retail crime. That also talked this morning to it just feels a bit weird now. Actually, I mean, like, yeah. We'll have a chat about these things. If it doesn't feel right, we'll wrap it up and say goodnight. But we'll still go with these. So new laws around punishing petty theft again, and those ones we talked about last night, the coward punch laws came into effect as well.
Get caught and you could get fined on the spot, just like a speeding ticket. Just one of the tough new measures unveiled today to battle retail crime. The harsher penalties include bigger fines and longer prison sentences, and are aimed at deterring thieves and encouraging shopkeepers to report low-level offences. But some are labelling the move confusing. Jacob Johnson has more details and reaction.
From pocketing a few items to stealing a trolley full of food, shoplifting costs Kiwi businesses $1.4 billion a year. Supermarket staff see it every day.
Overwhelmingly, frustration is an issue for our team, and also just that there's a bit of fear in there when you get some heavy aggression coming within inside the stores.
Now the government's proposing a new ticketing rate.
Yep, and the question would be,
Jason, how much in super profits did Woolworths generate last year?
He's not answering.
No, he's not answering.
I think he's afraid to answer.
Even if I was there, he wouldn't answer it. It's a bad question.
You've stumped him. Look at him. Look at him. He refuses to answer, Chewy. Hey, look at you. 1-0 Chewy.
There's more robbery being done by the supermarket duopoly than shoplifters. Fucking guarantee it.
Coming within inside the stores.
Now the government's proposing a new ticketing regime to stop thieves.
So a retailer calls the police, they turn up, issue a ticket on the spot?
Yes, it could happen in that way.
Can I just say as well, Mr. Goldsmith, this was one of the worst. I watched the whole thing. One of the worst press conferences I've ever seen. Everything was yep, well, yes, yep, well, it was like. It was like he was not the CEO, not in upper management, but like 3 levels down, and all the people above him had just got norovirus, and he was handed the speech to go and do it on their behalf. That's honestly how it felt. I don't know why he feels so kind of pathetic, but it was pathetic. That's the right word for it.
That way, if the police aren't available immediately, then there could be CCTV coverage or footage which demonstrates that.
Like, put it this way, this is the good stuff, because they showed it on One News. So this is the good. This is the good. The time he responded well.
Or footage which demonstrates that person.
He says that hinges on being able to identify the offender properly.
A speeding camera system for shoplifting doesn't.
Sonny gets to share some thoughts as well, Chewy.
Sonny, the guy that's paid, what, 390 grand a year to consult on this fucking terrible bullshit? Well, he was everywhere when Labor was in government, but he's been fucking MIA for months.
Wow, he's probably
now he's come out.
He's probably been spending his money on, like, South Pacific holidays and stuff, Chewy. He's been busy doing things.
Seem workable to me. I mean, you've got a overworked and understaffed police force already.
Shoplifters would face a fine of up to $500 if they've stolen less than $500 worth of goods. Anything more than that would come with a fine of up to $1,000. The minister says currently the administrative burden deters a lot of retailers from making official complaints, meaning a lot of lower level offences go unreported.
What we actually do in the end is go, how much is it worth for us to do that?
The government also changing penalties for shoplifting offences that are taken to court, with a maximum of 1 year in prison for goods under $2,000, a maximum of 7 years in prison for goods over $2,000, also creating a new aggravated theft offence when items are stolen in a threatening or disorderly manner. This Queen Street store pleased.
We want them to actually face the necessary consequences that they deserve.
The changes recommended by a ministerial advisory group. Its work's already led to a plan to allow the public to make citizens' arrests during the day.
There are lots of loopholes in our current laws that we are, removing those loopholes.
I do find it interesting that as an advisor, and maybe all advisors would say this, but he speaks about we, as in the government. We are doing this. We are removing. Like, maybe an advisor would put themselves on the team and say that, but it is particularly interesting that he's not part of the we, but he's speaking like we are doing. This is like, no, you are advising and they are doing, but the we. I mean, maybe I'm being petty, but it was an interesting observation.
Removing those loopholes, we are closing those loopholes.
Woolworths still has some questions over the proposed ticketing plan.
I've still got to look at the exact detail of how it works, and particularly around if customers come in and they get the fine or the ticket, as they said, but it's just working out what that means for us as a retailer.
The bill will be introduced in the coming months, the government hoping it'll be in place by this time next year. Jacob Johnson, One News.
So that's number one, Chewy. There is another part of this conversation, which is Mr. Goldsmith this morning on Big Herald News, where they talked about the one punch law.
Don't give them ideas back.
Big Herald News. Then we're going to do that. We've got to figure it out. We'll get there in the end. I still like Sir Christopher of Luxon. I think we've got to keep that going as well. But first of all, changes to the Retail Theft Act. Any thoughts?
Oh, it's just more fiddling on the fucking edges, isn't it? It's already illegal to shoplift. It's already illegal to assault someone while doing the theft, right? These changes are just rearranging the deck chairs. It's going to mean that poor people are going to end up with big fines that they can't pay anyway. So much, look, this is remarkably similar to the story that we talked about last night. Does this change anything? Like, these guys are big talking about deterrence, like tougher legislation and bigger fines stops people doing things. And it doesn't. It stops people that might be teetering on the edge of doing something.
Yeah.
But the shoplifters that were all highlighted in that story, the ones that were apart from the file footage of someone helping themselves to a whole bunch of key rings, the people that are going in and stealing a whole bunch of meat from a supermarket to sell on Facebook Marketplace, right? They're as blatant as you can get, and the reason that they're able to do that is that they know that they'll be gone before the police arrive because there's not enough police.
And did you hear they opened up their new police school, Joey? So there's not enough people who want to be police officers to get them to their 500 number by November this year. So what they thought they'd do is they would split that not enough people between 2 police schools to try and get to their 500 mark. So, they're doing what they can. They're putting on the appearance, at least, of doing that. I am interested to find out more about this ticketing system because I might not be turned off to that. Now, the reason I would not be turned off to that is if they treated it like a speeding ticket, because that's what the example they gave, which means you have committed a very minor offence. Here's a fine. It's not a criminal conviction. It's not on your record. So I would be interested to hear more about that. But like we've found out before, sometimes an idea that comes up by this government that you kind of go, oh, interesting. There is lots of stuff in the background we haven't yet known about. Because to be honest, do we need to fill up the courts with 13-year-olds who have nicked a packet of cigarettes? Do we need to go through all their costs and the hassle and the time and all that? Or if it's something very minor, I'm open to this idea of going, you did something wrong, you broke a law, here's a fine, it's $200, and there's no, there's no criminal conviction there. I'd be interested to know more about that. But as we always say, the devil is in the detail. We have heard from the devil, but the devil hasn't given us all the information yet, Joey. Anyway.
Yeah, look, as someone that works in retail, I hate shoplifters. I hate people that work in shops, they make their job harder. And I think this was one of the first criticisms I had of this thing, like the citizen's arrest sort of thing. And I'm like, motherfucker, I'm not going to get stabbed. I'm not going to throw myself at someone, and I can understand that feeling. Certainly in other jobs where I took a lot more ownership over it, I probably would have chased a shoplifter and got fucking screwdrivered to death. But I'm older and wiser now. That shit's insured. I think there is a danger in those citizens' arrests. And I think it will lead to more injuries and potentially more deaths. I think it's a dumb idea.
Yeah.
I acknowledge what you're saying there, that if this, like a speeding ticket, I can see
only because that's the example they've used. And if they're going to use the example of a speeding ticket, unless it's a very serious crime like you're doing 120 and a 50, there's no criminal element to it. So if they're going to do it like that, I would like to know more about that. That would seem to be keeping people out of courts. That would seem to be keeping people out of a criminal record for a very, very minor offence. But I'm not putting my seal of approval on it now. And you know how much this government needs my seal of approval before they do anything? Because we don't have all the details. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And then the other aspect of it is, isn't it amazing when times are tough, when people are losing their jobs, when the cost of living's through the roof and everybody's wages are going backwards while their costs are going upwards, that the government can easily come up with new ways to make life even fucking harder for little to no gain. And when we're talking about the supermarkets, I have little to no sympathy to the effect on their bottom line of shoplifters. I have an enormous amount of sympathy for the supermarket workers that might feel like they're obligated to put their bodies on the line to stop someone affecting their employer's bottom line, because some of those employers will hold those employees personally responsible for not doing enough to stop someone leaving with a supermarket trolley full of meat. Right? That's not your job. Don't work for minimum wage in a supermarket and think you need to be a hero because you'll bleed out in the car park before anybody gets there.
And if you're the criminal, Gary's got some advice. When you steal butter, rub it all over yourself to make it easier to avoid capture as you flee. Doesn't work with cheese. So, we're projecting and giving advice to both sides, Chewy, both to the supermarket worker and the person who can't afford $18 for a block of butter. Didn't we hear that yesterday? $18 from somewhere? Someone said that?
Yeah.
All right.
And there are so many people actually robbing that the government seems to be on the side of. Fonterra, Foodstuffs.
Yes.
All of those guys.
Yes. All right. So the next part of there's actually lots of changes that came out today, including the government reducing how much they're going to give you when you KiwiSaver. So that's nice, eh? And the government adding 5% on to your worker, how much they have to contribute. So this government that keeps talking about things like, we should cancel Matariki because we can't afford the cost that it's putting on small business. Well, they've just added a cost to every small business in New Zealand of another 0.5% KiwiSaver. So which way is it, government? Is it that you're pro small business and you want to pay less, or is it that you're again? Seems weird. All right. So this morning on big Herald News, they talked about the one punch law, the coward's punch law.
And the latest law and order announcement, and we're getting a few of them from the government this week, a new offence category has been introduced for a coward's punch. This means longer sentences if you are convicted under these rules. Earlier on News Talk ZB, I spoke with Julianne Kincaid KC, Vice President of the Law Association, asked if these new offences will make a difference.
What these changes will do is add 1 year to the maximum penalty of offences which already exist. So I don't think that in reality they will have a huge impact on any particular case.
There you go. So rather than getting a 3-year sentence, you get a 4-year. And if they're not stopping and going 3 years and they go, oh, hang on, I can do 3 years in jail, but I can't do 3 years and 6 months, so I no longer will commit this offence. It's nonsense. It's ludicrous. And as we talked about last night, if the death penalty is not seen as a way to stop murders in various states of America, then a longer sentence is not going to be taken into account as a way to stop any kind of crime.
Paul Goldsmith is Justice Minister, introducing this with us this morning. Minister, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Now, you just heard Julianne Kincaid there say, actually, it's not going to make much difference. Do you concede that?
No.
Sorry, was that me, or was that stick man with a wig on in the background? See up there? Between the two screens?
Yeah, I clocked that as well.
Stick man's in the
He's
background.
watching to make sure that they stay on message.
But I'm enjoying the wig that stick man's got on.
It's Foodstuffs, just keeping an eye.
Oh, just checking out. Just noticed it. Wondered, look, everyone's being watched at all time.
Kincaid there say, actually, it's not going to make much difference. Do you concede that?
No, I respectfully disagree. Look, it's about sending a broader signal. The broader signal is that there are going to be real consequences for crime. The government's goal is to reduce the number of victims of crime.
There's going to be consequences for crime. How is this changing? All the experts telling you it's not going to make a change, and you guys are still saying it's going to make a change. Like Luxon said yesterday, I don't care. Is it going to work? I don't care. He says, I don't care if it's going to work or not. I'm just going to do it. If you don't care if it's not going to work or not, that means technically it could make it worse. I don't care. Going to do it anyway.
And one way of doing that is being clear about consequences and sending consistent messages. And so tougher sentencing, less flexibility for judges to massively reduce sentences, dealing with the first responders, now the coward's punch, all sending that broad message that we're not going to tolerate aggressive, violent behaviour in its different means.
Does the message get through to the actual criminal who's about to throw a coward's punch on a Saturday night outside a nightclub? No. Are they thinking, oh, I must remember that Paul Goldsmith...
Good question, Ryan.
Yeah, good one,
Ryan.
Good
question.
Well done, Ryan. Journalism 101.
Watching the show last
the
night.
only question that you needed to ask in any of this. Good question. Even Goldsmith's going, oh, you're not supposed to ask me that question.
Increase the sentences.
No, in the split second,
No.
people aren't thinking about these.
No. No, he just said no.
Cool.
He just confirmed it's not going to make a difference. Yet you're saying that these longer sentences are going to stop this sort of thing happen, and now you're saying no, it's not going to make a difference. So again, which is it?
Let's increase the sentences.
No, in the split second, people aren't thinking about these things. But obviously, it's the broader message. And the broader message that we had under the previous government was, oh, don't worry, it's somebody else's fault that you do these things. So and we're shifting that message to accountability.
This message then is not necessarily for the criminal, it's
Correct.
for the community.
Correct. Well done, Mr. Bridges. And specifically, it's for the community that they need to re-elect them next time. That's who it's for. You know, when it's like if there's an elephant in the room that you haven't seen and then you turn around and you smack straight into it, you didn't know you were going to hit it. Mr. Bridge, you just did it. You just tripped over that one perfectly. Well done, sir.
For both. It's definitely for the criminal, yes.
But it won't change a criminal's behaviour.
Correct.
Well, that broader message does filter through. And
I think he thought he was a Jedi there for a second. And I think what he was trying to do with his hand going, these are not the questions you're supposed to be asking me, Mr. Bridges. You watch. Here comes the Jedi. Ready?
Behaviour.
Well, that broader message does filter through.
And it's pretty good.
If people are operating in a world where there are no consequences or it's somebody else's fault that you managed to smash somebody in the face, it's because of something that happened 100 years ago, or it's because of your upbringing or something like that, or it's somebody else's fault, then that...
Do you know why he sounds so terrible when he's doing that stand-up? Because he's really bad at this. Like, he's not even hitting that blimmin' racist tone well. Like, he's not hitting that race baiting. He's doing it nothing. He's swinging and missing at everything. Not the talking points, not the angle of let's blame Maori, not bad Labour. Hasn't done that very well. He's doing it all badly.
Message seeps through.
Yeah.
We're sending a different
But
message.
they can still have...
You are responsible for your actions.
But they can still have discounts for all of those things that you've mentioned.
Yep.
I know you're limiting the maximum,
yeah,
but they can still have discounts for those things.
Right.
Why not make this, and this is a number of people texted in this morning, why not make this rather than trying to go after the maximums, about a minimum?
Well, look, I mean, that's an option down the line. Ultimately, the way that New Zealand has traditionally operated is we set a maximum sentence, there's flexibility.
And then the judges discount the hell out of it until it's a Briscoe sale, and they end up walking.
Because that's the judges.
You've lost me.
That's the judge's job, Ryan.
You're doing so well, Ryan.
You're doing so well. The judge's job is to figure out what would be an appropriate sentence between the minimum and the maximum. That's their job. The government's job is to set legislation. The judicial's job is to decide what within that legislation and the sentencing guidelines it's appropriate for. That's unless what you're saying, Ryan, and maybe I think it is that all the judges are woke soy boys who are just going to make this as smaller a penalty as possible. Unless that's what you're saying. If that's what you're saying as well, Ryan, you probably should just get out and say it. Get out and say it in front of everybody rather than sort of hinting around the back end.
Yep, and we're limiting it. It is always an option for the Parliament to have mandatory sentences.
But why
or
not
minimum
do it?
sentences.
Why haven't you done that?
Well, we haven't done that yet because we think...
But do you trust the judiciary will pass these changes on as you intend?
That's our expectation, yes.
What if they don't?
Well, then we've got other options up our sleeve, as I say.
Like mandatory?
Well, yes, but look, I think the basic idea that we have in New Zealand, set a maximum sentence, and we're going to lift it a year for the coward's punch, which was, an unprovoked attack with no warning to the head or to the neck, which, can...
Like all of those ones like we said last night, all those attacks you get warnings for. Because I know when I'm going out drinking on a Friday night and looking to get drunk and pissed in town and throw a punch through, what I normally do is I send a text message to the person the day before going, at 2 a.m. on Saturday morning in the Octagon, I will be punching you in the face. Notice has been given. No coward's punch here. That's what I do.
Yeah, you've got to allow 3 to 5 working days. That's why sometimes I skip the trip to the pub.
Yep, there you go.
Can change the life of a person or end the life of a person, but can turn a whole family upside down. We want to send a clearer message. We don't accept that. We don't tolerate it. And you're going to have a tougher consequence as a result.
He's not good at this. Sorry, he's just not good at this. There you go. The coward's punch is in. Makes no difference. It adds a year on. And apparently that's going to make everything okay. Except if you ask him, will it change their behaviour? And he says no. Where the fuck that leaves us overall, I've got no idea, Joey.
It feels like this government's flailing. You got one wing of the government swinging at intellectuals. The other ones are taking pot shots at the judiciary. It sounds a bit fucked.
Let us get to some super chats. What's been coming in? Oh my gosh. Matthew, thank you for a very generous super chat, $17.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
For the fucks. Love the work team. For the fucks? Okay. Kiwi Bird, you stole a chocolate bar, now pay a $500 fine. Yeah, this is the detail where the devil lives, Kiwi Bird. Like they said up to $500 if you steal less than $500. Like if it was matched, I mean, it probably couldn't be because like you're saying, Kiwi Bird, if you stole a $4 chocolate bar, they're not going to fine you $4. But yeah, details, please. Details. Rajan says, remember everyone, if you're at a supermarket owned by Woolies or Foodstuffs and think you see someone shoplifting, no, you didn't, says Rajan. Sorry, Chewy, it sounded like you were about to say something there.
No, I've never seen a shoplifter.
Just a smacking of the lips. That was delightful. The danger of mouse. I am enjoying all these names coming back. I wonder what YouTube did for 24 hours to get rid of them. It's just creating more fictitious money. Is that right? Fictitious money. Yep. It's a hard one for a dyslexic. Gotcha. Waiheke, if iwi set up a supermarket chain, as the rumours are suggesting, that would get the supermarket duopoly shitting themselves. Yash. And yeah, that would be really interesting, actually. Watch out. The Wages Protection Act might be next. Oh, God, Peter. We're only doing uplifting stories now. Like, we're going to talk about Winston Peters next. Yay! And Jody says, security guards have mandatory training in conflict. Shocking to expect retail staff to fulfill that role. Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. And I thought about it after we talked last night. These are, they criticize Chloe for saying that there's this, American imported culture. Yet who the fuck has ever heard ambulance staff talked about as first responders in New Zealand? That's an American term. It's an American term, first responders. Yep. Citizens arresters feels very Americanized as well. So, was Chloe wrong? These feel like they're all very Americanized terms that they're using as well. And anything that bloody Seymour does seems to be straight from the Trumpian book, the Regulatory Derangement Bill, straight from the American book, the Trump Derangement Bill. So, yeah, I thought about that last night. Why were we calling them first responders? And as someone said in the chat when we started the question, how is a prison officer a first responder? Someone in the chat said, if a prison officer is a first responder, then surely so is a teacher. I'm like, yeah. What about a nurse then? First responders. Like, what is your definition? I would think a first responder is someone who goes out into the public and responds first. Police, ambulance, fire. That's probably it. Is there anyone else who goes out?
That traditionally is the measurement for it. Like I found it really odd last night when Luxon included prison guards in there.
Gareth says, before we move on, this is like if the tree falls in the wood and no one's there. This is a philosophical question. What do we do if a retailer coward punches a shoplifter? See? Big brains out there now, you're thinking. Speaking of the opposite of big brains, ferry conversation. Again, we're back on the ferry conversation. There's been some announcements made today around the ferry, although you'll be happy to know that they still don't know how much it's going to cost, but it's definitely going to be less. But they don't know how much, but it'll definitely be less. But they don't know how much it's going to be. Let's have because we've been following this now for 18 months. Let's have a look as to what the announcement was today. Lots of questions as well about they're still saying 2029. We would have had our first IREX this year. They're still saying 2029, but how are they saying that when they haven't booked one to be built? They've got no timeline to get there, and they don't know how much it's going to cost, but they're still saying 2029.
It's never plain sailing when it comes to the country's troubled inter-islander ferry service. Understandably, the minister in charge went by air to unveil the latest developments in Picton. And staying with the maritime theme, Winston Peters said this is not our first regatta, as he revealed details about the infrastructure to accommodate the two new ferries, yet to be chosen. But he couldn't say how much it'll cost.
How much, Winnie? How much is it going to be? How can you as government say this is going to happen without doing budget? That doesn't sound very, we're the ones to look after the economy. You don't know how much it's going to be.
James Fleury was in Picton for the announcement.
And the new Wolf. The rail minister far more complimentary of Cook Strait ferries than the national airline this morning.
The ferry service has achieved this year 98% punctuality, whilst Air New Zealand's on 78% punctuality, and that's why we're late.
Winston Peters announcing core plans for what he calls no-nonsense ferry infrastructure.
IREX was going to rebuild the entire road and rail marshalling yards.
Yeah, because it was sort of getting prepared for the next 50 years of growth, population increase, like that, maybe even 80 years. So yeah, it was getting ahead of the infrastructure program. So yeah, you're right, Winnie, that's what it was going to do.
Lifting the yards up metres in height.
Yep.
And adding substantial expense.
Yes.
We, in contrast, are making modest changes.
Oh.
In Picton,
we got to always bring this back as well, right? When they say things like increasing, like, oh, it would have cost so much more, that's not the question. The question is, what would we have got for it? Not that it would have cost more. If you get half the product for 3/4 the price, then it's a terrible decision. If you get twice the product for a 25% more, it's a great decision. So don't let these guys pull the wool over your eyes by saying the expense was going to be immense. How much was it? What was it going to get us? How much are you paying now? What's that going to get us? Then you'll know whether this was a good, it wasn't, or bad decision. That's the only way to know.
New wharves and link spans or ferry connecting bridges will be built.
Pretty. That's such a pretty place. I miss it. We were over there for lunch for the honeymoon. Just in there. It was lovely.
Ferry connecting bridges will be built, while in Wellington the existing wharf will be strengthened and extended to accommodate the larger vessels.
How much?
So we have to get on and do some detailed design now based on the ship specification, and that will enable us...
Hang on. Sorry. The ship specification? What? What ship would that be? Like genuine question. Hang on. The ship's specification. What ship would that be, Chewy?
In his defense, I get what he's saying there. That when they tender out this process, they will have specifications for how long the ship will be, all of that sort of thing before it's designed. So you can actually design facilities for a ship before it's built.
And is that going to be the best use of money? Like tailoring a shipyard into a design they have to fulfill? Or would it be better use of money to give the shipyard the specifics and get them to design the best price ferry for the basic specifics?
I don't have an answer for that, but yeah.
Put it this way, once you've built the infrastructure, and then you go to a company to build a ship, haven't they got you over a barrel? Because you have to build it a specific way for a specific wharf rather than building the ship first and then building the wharf to match. Surely. So I'll just say again, Mr. Wellborn, what ship are we talking about?
Do some detailed design now based on the ship specification, and that will enable us to get on with planning. It comes around 18 months after Finance Minister Nicola Willis scrapped previous IREX plans, cancelling an order for Korean-made
I don't want none of your ghost ships, bro.
ferries, saying the cost for portside infrastructure had blown out.
The Ferrari is not the only car.
That line needs to play on loop in the 6 months leading up to the election. Every Labour, every Green, every Te Pāti Māori website, just that again and again, over and over again.
The Toyota Corolla option, the reliable option.
Earlier IREX plans would have had one of the ferries delivered by now. Now, with that project scrapped, they've yet to even decide on a new ferry building company. Of course,
what a
we're
shit show.
So they need a ferry building, a ferry terminal building company. They need a ferry building company. They have neither of them, but they're going to deliver them in 4 years. Wow. We're getting close to 3 years. It's fucking July, people. 3.5 years. And they're going to deliver it cheaper and it's going to be at least as good. Come on. Like, you know, so, look, if you believe this, I have a bridge to sell you, or maybe we can just play Find the Lady. I'll make $1 million off you.
Just to recap, That whole we don't need a Ferrari, we need just a good, reliable second-hand Corolla was always a bunch of bullshit and was almost instantly debunked by people in the industry that said, for our conditions, there are 15 ships globally that could do this. None of them are for sale. None of them, not a single one. So there was never going to be a second-hand option. So then straight out of the gates, we still need to build a new ship. We need to pay Hyundai for all the work that they've already done and delivered nothing. And we might still have to go back to them to build the new ship anyway. So it is impossible for them to deliver what they have promised. And this government should never be allowed to forget it.
And if you'd like to get a Nicky No Boats t-shirt or hoodie or stickers, it's BHN Shop.
It's the best way to make sure that they never forget it. If those stickers are always popping up on lampposts around Parliament, that'd be great. If you want to go into the gallery in Parliament, like I'm hoping to do in August, wearing a Nicky No Boats t-shirt, you should do it.
Sounds
You
good.
need a t-shirt to be able to do it. If you plan to get thrown out of the gallery while wearing that t-shirt,
Making lots of noise.
that's how you do it. You've got to have the t-shirt.
All right, here we go.
There won't be rail-enabled ferries for probably 4 years. That can be very disruptive, but the future is bright.
The minister wouldn't reveal the finer cost details and had no visual plans to share.
I'm confident that we're talking about saving the taxpayer billions.
Why? Why are you confident? Billions is plural. That means at least two. So you're going to spend $1 billion, you reckon? Billions. So more than one.
I wouldn't even be confident of that man finding a Werther's original in his pocket right at that moment.
Oh, no.
Let alone
100%
saving
confident.
billions.
100% confident of that. And a packet of cigarettes in his other pocket and probably some whiskey in his back. Why are you confident is the question. Why you don't have a company to build the docks. You don't have a company to build the ships. So you have no plan. Why are you confident that? And you're going to save billions, plural, billions, plural. If the original cost was $3 billion, that means what you're saying right now, Mr. Peters, what you're committing to is a cost of no more than $1 billion. And you're confident? Please,
When we find out the truth, our media are only going to have one person to ask to come back to him on. And they're going to have to be asking that question about, you said that you would save billions. Did you do it? To a fucking casket. He will nope out of this before we get ferries.
Okay, we'll keep going.
But keeping costs low is a priority, revealing the existing ferry terminals on both sides of the Cook Strait are set to stay.
IREX was going to build a Taj Mahal terminal building here in Picton and a Sydney Opera House in Wellington.
Picton's terminal was originally built as a temporary structure. The minister and Kiwi Rail confident it can stay for the long term.
The majority of the New Zealanders that travel on inter-island are in their own private cars, so they're in a terminal yard.
I don't think that's true. The majority of people on the ferry are in vehicles. That's easily testable. I was on the ferry. I was on 2 ferries not that long. Mind you, I wasn't on the Inter-Islander. I was on the Blue Bridge. But I don't think that's true. The number of people that were on there versus the number of cars, I don't think it's the majority. I really don't. We should check that.
And they drive onto the ferry. This building is for processing foot passengers, and it's not a destination.
And fuck them.
With aging
They don't
existing
deserve
ferries
nice things.
Yeah, screw them. No problems.
and tourism on the rise, time is crucial.
And we look forward to, I do challenge Kiwi Rail and say, well, you know, you're saying 4 years, but will it be 4 years?
The challenge set for a new connection between our two main islands. James Fleury, One News.
Look, I'm just over the horse shit, eh? Like, it's like, I mean, I get really tired of asking the media to do a decent job, but that's the only question to Mr. Peters. Why are you confident? You said billions, saving billions. That's got an S on the end, Mr. Seymour, unless it was your teeth fucking falling out. I mean, Mr. Peters. Billions is more than one. That means two. Billions, yep. 2 out of 3. So you're saying right here, right now, it's going to cost us no more than $1 billion? Please. I call bullshit. I think Babbitt
slipped.
Babbitt's got it. It's a steamboat. Of course it is.
Steamboat Winnie.
Steamboat. Steamboat Winnie.
Why is it? Why is it? Why do we have this consistent thing in this country that the New Zealand taxpayer can't have nice things?
Yeah.
Why does everything have to look like a repurposed shearing shed? Like, what is the image? Look at that terminal. That is our main bridge between, that's a form of transport. It's a state highway between the two islands. You'll have tourists going through there. You'll have New Zealand taxpayers going through there. That is what you're worth. A shitty, temporary building that looks diabolical. But New Zealand, you can't have nice things. We can't afford it. That's the consistent message. We can afford it. It makes really awkward conversations when I go golfing or when I go to the club, that the New Zealand taxpayer wants nice things. And the way that they get nice things is we take away from you, political donor. Like, this is bullshit. Like, I hate Winston's hyperbole. We're going to build the Sydney Opera House and a Taj Mahal. Were we? Were we really, you doddery old man? Or is this a pointless piece of hyperbole? Like, we weren't going to buy a Ferrari. We weren't going to buy a Corolla. We were going to buy a ferry that works for 30 years.
Or more. But your conversation there about we can have nice things just reminded me of, if people haven't seen it yet, the conversation.
Oh, fuck. Yes.
The conversation between Craig and Chloe last week. I was thinking of two other things. And just because you've used that words, I'll play you this. This is only like a 35-second intro to the podcast, but listen to what Chloe's got to say.
If you could sum it up for the viewers and listeners, what's the one thing you want them to take away from this document and from the kind of the suite of new documents that you've put together?
We can have nice things. And we can treat our economy as though it's not a mystical kind of place that we want to wall off. It is in fact the real world in which all of us live. And it should be open to democracy in the same way that every other area of policy is. We should not let the people who are currently laughing their way to the bank, benefiting from the status quo, tell us what is possible.
Oh, you could just enjoy the credits because they're just so good. How can you not enjoy them? So Chloe Swarbrick, we can have nice things. There you go, Joe. I just wanted to put it out there for you. That episode is on,
I'm a firm believer of that. Look, while we're shouting out other amazing content creators, I'm going to shout out one that's not under the purview of the BHN media empire.
Yet. I don't know.
Paul Barlow.
Yeah.
Has put out a fantastic piece of content. Fabricated consent, AstroTurfs local. We've all got local body elections going on at the moment, and there is a whole bunch of shit fuckery going on. Actors standing up, people, the cookers are still around. Paul does an excellent deep dive in it. This is well worth going to his channel and looking for it. That's Paul, the other one. Fabricated consent, AstroTurfs local. Very, very good.
Yeah, it's very good. I spoke to Paul. He gave me an advanced link, and I had a look at it over the weekend. And we were going to get him on. Was it tonight? But he's actually going offshore. He's going on a holiday, I think, for a month overseas. So we'll probably talk to him when he gets back. All right. Speaking of back, it's the back end of the show. Way, it's like that. There was a little sort of a. Anyway, I do want to do this last story because it was kind of weird. There is. We have this thing in New Zealand where politicians sponsor a teenager to do youth parliament. There's a report out, and I think it was on RNZ. There it is. Youth MPs accuse government of censoring them. Ministry says otherwise. The protocols followed for this year's youth parliament are the same as the previous year, the Ministry of Youth Development says, after accusations of censorship. However, the email sent to one youth MP carries the subject line, changes required, and stated the ministry, quote, have had to make some changes. This comes down to because what the youth do, they get together and they have like a time in the debating chamber and they debate. And what they're saying, some of these youth are saying that they've been told what they can and can't say, and they're not allowed to be critical of the government. What the government is saying is, well, the thing is, in the House, these teenagers don't have parliamentary privilege, so we're just advising them on what might be defamatory or sub judice, or whatever it might be. So they're saying, but they've never done that before at all, ever. This is a really weird story because it's got like 3 stories in one, and I don't remember what the story is that it starts, but you hear when I play it, it sounds like they're not talking about the youth conversation, but they are. Just give it the first 20 seconds, have a listen.
The government's KiwiSaver changes kick in today.
Weird. It's talking about KiwiSaver, then it takes a hard turn to youth MPs.
$2.3 billion over 4 years. It was this day 18 years ago KiwiSaver was first launched, the same age as some of the youth MPs participating at Parliament this week. And the government today faced awkward accusations from those youth MPs who claim they were told not to criticise the coalition's policies in their speeches. Political correspondent Zane Small has the developments.
Youth MPs having their say today in the House of Representatives.
We're witnessing a widening gap in Aotearoa between those who have access to opportunity and those who don't.
Too many are stuck in a system built for the past.
Speeches, some of them say, were censored by the Ministry of Youth Development.
We've been told to soften our language, to drop key parts of our speeches, and to avoid criticising certain ministers or policies.
The censorship and the alterations of speeches undermines the capacity of...
Just be going on. Doesn't this girl just sound like she's going to be a politician? The way she speaks and enunciates is like she is going to be a public speaker as she goes up, whatever role she takes.
Censorship and the alterations of speeches undermines the capacity of our youth MPs to freely share their beliefs and their experiences on issues that impact them.
The Minister for Youth.
And I don't know if you noticed, but she's looking straight down the barrel of the she's looking straight down the barrel of the camera as well the whole time she's talking. Look straight down the barrel of the camera.
And their experiences.
The little Chloe, that's all. Or maybe a little Tamitha, whichever you want to pick.
On issues that impact them.
The Minister for Youth, James Meagher, says it's a misunderstanding.
The Ministry of Youth Development has at all times said that what the youth MPs say in their speeches is entirely up to them, but the Ministry provides them support and advice on how to keep themselves safe from things like defamation, breaches of privacy, and maintaining the code of conduct and the standing orders that they all signed up to. So that might be where the confusions come from.
The whole reason we have a youth parliament is to have the debates that young New Zealanders want to have, and they should feel free to express their views.
The Minister of Finance has told us that this didn't come as a directive from Cabinet. Does that make you feel better?
No, because I think it still shows that there is systematic injustice.
We've been told to not argue on either side of contentious issues such as the pay equity reforms.
The opposition filling in the gap and bringing the government's pay equity changes back into the political spotlight.
Now that's the end of the youth thing. We'll play the end of this because this is interesting what's happening as well. It's a little bit of theatre, but I guess it's a way of keeping it in the forefront. So basically, the youth. I'll come back to this. The youth are reporting, as I said, that they have had to make changes, and they've had to make some changes, and they've been told that feels like that maybe the government's been called out a little bit, and they're going, oh no. Changes recommended included the removal of general mentions of the Treaty Principles Bill, funding for Māori in Pacifica, and pay equity. Speeches about youth voice and freedom of speech were also edited. That is very different from talking about, privacy and defamation. So let's just let that sit where it is now and then go on to the second part of the story, which is Labor highlighting the Equal Pay Act debacle.
And vow that Labor will be doing everything we can to support you and to make sure that we get this right for our care and support workers.
Today, care workers were presented with giant fake bank cheques representing the amount unions say they missed out on, after the government narrowed the scope of pay equity claims, saving nearly $13 billion. The 1st of July marks 3 years since their pay equity claim was made. My
only thoughts, and we'll go to this lady speaking, my only thoughts, I hope that they're on board, because this is being used by the opposition to highlight what these guys didn't get. I hope they don't feel at all taken advantage of. I hope they're all on board. Because kind of being handed a big check to say, this is what you would have got, if you're not fully on board, could be a bit slack. I'm sure they are, but I would just put that out there that I hope they're all on board and understand that this is theatre, but it's theatre to an end of helping the issue that this government has caused around pay equity. These people who have missed out on their pay don't necessarily need to be the ones in the firing squad. but the opposition MPs are the ones who should be, and that's part of their job to be in the firing squad. So I hope that's all been done. I'm assuming it has, but I'm just putting it out there to go, we want to make sure that those people are looked after as well.
It has been a long haul, especially for those grandmothers, mothers, daughters that have put in their hard work to be valued.
Today also marks the beginning of the government's changes to KiwiSaver. Its contribution to the scheme will be halved to $260 a year. Those who earn more than $180,000 will no longer be eligible for the government's contribution. Plus, 16 and 17-year-olds in the workforce can now join the scheme. From April next year, the default contribution rate...
This government doesn't care about small business, Chewy. They're making small business pay more. They're making small business pay more for KiwiSaver. They don't care about small business.
For employers and workers will rise from 3% to 3.5%, which technically will more than make up the difference of the government's smaller contribution.
Overall, these changes mean that New Zealanders will have bigger savings at retirement or when they go to buy their first home.
We're seeing about 40,000 Kiwis a year withdraw their KiwiSaver to buy their first home, and we're seeing about 50,000 reach 65 every year and eligible to draw down on their KiwiSaver. So the impact it's having on people's lives is huge.
Another policy coming into effect today should give first home buyers a bit more peace of mind about their savings in the unlikely event of a bank collapse.
I'm interested in this as well, because I can remember, I think it was South Canterbury Finance or Canterbury Finance fell over, and that's when we all learned about how your there was some banks and some lending institutes that had guaranteed money looked after. Like, in other words, if like the ASB went bankrupt, the government guaranteed that your money was safe, and they basically took insurance and they covered the money in the certain number of banks or financial institutions. Others weren't. I had family members who were with the global financial crisis who lost $250,000 and those ones weren't covered. Now, this sounds like what they're doing is changing it. I need to do some more work on this, because they're now saying they're guaranteeing $100,000 up to $100,000. I think the previous, like the South Canterbury Finance or the other banks, it was just whatever's in there is covered. So this sounds like it's something that the government's doing, which is positive, but I need, again, the details. We need to find out more about this.
Under the new deposit compensation scheme, deposits with banks and other lenders will now be insured up to $100,000 per person.
The scheme is in line with what Australia, the United Kingdom, other countries around the world have, and it's being paid for by the financial institutions themselves through it.
Notice she hasn't said it's better as to what the previous one was. She's just pointing to Australia, saying this is what they do over there. So it does. My bullshit nerve's going off. I could be wrong, but my bullshit nerve's going off.
Some solace, perhaps, for these fired-up youth, that their savings in the bank will now be protected.
That'll do. There you go, Troy. That's us for tonight.
Can you imagine having a worse group of people to try and sort of send an edict down on high that they should edit their words? Getting selected for youth parliament. You have some extremely driven, extremely ideological people, and they're teenagers, so they already don't give a fuck about what you say and have a general disdain for how you're running things anyway. It's very clear that they never expected the press to get a hold of it. Oh shit, no, we're not censoring the kids.
So you know about what I just said. South Canterbury Finance deposits were covered under, it was called the New Zealand Retail Deposit Guarantee Scheme, meaning the government guaranteed repayment to depositors. According to this article, there's no limit on it. The scheme was triggered when South Canterbury Finance was placed in receivership. The government paid out approximately $1.6 billion to depositors under this guarantee. So I'll keep reading on that, but that says to me, well, it didn't say up to $100,000 in this article, but it is only one. My bullshit nerve's gone off, so we are going to chase up on that, because if it's correct that it was any amount, this is actually a downgrade. If it was only up to $100,000, this is a new way of doing it. But if it was what it was, what's the change? So we'll follow. We'll chase it up, whānau. We'll chase. Oh yeah, here we go. Very short says this. Yep, very short says we've got some confirmation. So this is a downgrade. Yep, there we go. Yep, no limit, and now there's a limit of 100K. Means it's worse. So there you go. So this government has just, if it was an insurance policy, has just devalued the amount of payout, which means they're not going to be paying as much. So they're not going to be on the hook for as much. So that gives them future guarantee of money and less risk of paying out big amounts in the future. Shitty, eh? Shitty. Who would have thought Chewy would get to the end of the show and would finally find something to criticise this government on? They're always so above the board normally.
It's been a long road, but I
shocking.
think the lesson that people can take away from here is no longer how long the road is and how steep the struggle. Follow your dreams. It'll come to you.
Couple of chats, then let's head off for the night. Kaiarahi, currently sailing on its way to Singapore for dry dock, comes back to 90 plus jobs lost across the fleet with the Aratiri coming off the run. Yeah, we talked about that as well, actually, didn't we? Because like, if you need to continue on running for 4 years, you can't really miss a service. If you had to stretch it out 4 or 5 months just to get through to the first IREX, you wouldn't be so worried about it. So that's another thing they've had to have to do. Wu Ming says, why is the government so scared of young people that they feel they have to limit the speech of young people? Well, I actually think this government, contrary to popular opinion, and many on the right, actually do want to limit lots of people's speech, not just those on the left. Chewy, you've got a couple in there, a couple of highlighted ones. Do you want to do those? If you
yeah. So the Moonlight here says speeches about freedom of speech were edited, and that noise was my irony meter exploding. Yep, absolutely. Daniel Louis here says youth MPs misunderstood that this was a quiet censure. They weren't supposed to be able to share it with the media. Look,
funny.
I saw a comment in the chat go past about please have a feel good story at the end of the show because it's so grim. And yes, I'd love to speed run a whole bunch of shitty stories that we haven't had time to do on this very long show. But the hope that we are going to leave you with is those youth MPs. What they were talking about and why the government was scared about it. It was all about recognising climate change. It was all about recognising Indigenous power and Māori, and that the Treaty of Waitangi is the key to everything. These kids innately understand that. And that is terrifying for the guys at the wheel at the moment. It is unrecognisable to people like Winston Peters and Shane Jones. And that is why they are reacting the way that they are. It's been said before, and I'll repeat it again. The kids are all right.
And with that note, it is time to say good night. You like that one, Chewy? Deaf. Way in getting around the sensor. Yay to us. Not too much more to add from me. Hope you guys have a good day tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see you back here tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Anything, Chewy?
No, I have covered a lot tonight. I'm exhausted, wee buddy, and I'm going to make sure that this isn't inside my head when I get into bed.
Very good. All right, we'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 team for another edition of Big Hairy News. Hooroo!
Cheers, fam.